Well, hello, and thank you for downloading the latest podcast from your friends at Radio 2. This is the Confessions podcast, which you probably know because it's written on some digital readout thing. So here come the very latest terrible tales from the very sinful Radio 2 listener. They're after a bit of forgiveness. So what do we have here? Well, we have a sweet, small fry, sweary story, a two-timing turkey takeaway. That was impressive. A moshing metaller's mistaken mug. Very good. And a plastered pull-up party trick. Here they all come. Gather round then for another drive time confession. Tonight's comes from Kerry. Thank you, Kerry. To the dedicated, wise collective, I seek forgiveness for a great wrong I did 7 years ago when my youngest child had me tearing my hair out. Let me elaborate. I have 2 children. 7 years ago, my son was 4.5. and my daughter, 2.5. We were very lucky where we lived, as we were on an estate that backed onto a wood. So we had a back gate leading into the wood, and the children would play close to the fence, climbing the trees, digging holes, that kind of thing. I have to add, their dad worked away a lot, and I was raising the children basically on my own. A poignant point, says Kerry. She just wants everyone to know that, mitigating circumstances. There were other children that played in the woods. A little girl my daughter's age and a lad a bit older than my son. It was lovely letting the children play and get dirty while I was making the tea in relative peace. After a few weeks of happy playing, I noticed that my daughter's language was getting a tad ripe. As days went on, her language was becoming similar to that of a truck driver. I personally do not swear, well, not in earshot of the youngsters. It started with her saying rude words when she was in the bath and telling me to go away in a very unladylike kind of bleep-off manner. You get the idea. Father Simon, I was mortified. It got worse when she started swearing at playgroup. The embarrassment was torture. How do parents stop this? Quentin Tarantino would have loved it. I, on the other hand, did not. All the helpful parenting websites said, ignore this sort of behaviour, so I did. And she kept on. I tried banning toys. No joy. I banned TV programmes. No joy. I swapped pretty dresses for horrible trousers, and I just got swore at. I was at my wit's end. Then it came to me. She was in the bath and told me to get the bleeping soap off her. And I calmly said, What?
Sorry.
What do you think's coming, by the way?
Sorry. Go on.
Okay.
No, go on.
She told me to get the soap off her, and I calmly said, did you know if girls swear too much, their noses go blue, and then they go black, and then their noses fall off? We're back on that again. Yeah, she looked at me and I just nodded. My son was also in the bath and listening very intently. When I put her to bed, she said another bad word, and I reminded her of my blue nose dropping off story. In the morning, I woke her up and exclaimed as I picked her up, your nose is definitely turning blue, young lady. Anyway, oh no, what shall we do? I don't know if it's ever going to get... that pink nose, that nice pink nose that you had? I think that's probably gone. My son came out of his room and looked puzzled. I just winked at him. My daughter by now was in floods of tears. I found some cream and I put it on her nose and explained that it might help. I took my son to school and managed a quick word with his teacher, out of earshot of my daughter, about the nose issue. She joined in brilliantly. Next up was the playgroup teacher. I managed to whisper to her, and she also joined in, and she produced some cream that might help, as long as she never swore again. Well, let me tell you, Father Simon, this worked. After calming down once the nose was pink again, she promised never ever to say bad words, and told me that she was only copying the older brother of her friend. I kept the notion that swearing turns noses blue for many years, until recently, in fact. So right now, 7.5 years ago, my son was 4.5, so daughter is 2.5. So daughter is now 9.5, and we just lost that idea that swearing turns your nose blue. So Kerry says, collective with immense moral knowledge, I seek forgiveness not from my daughter. She deserved it and should have done as she was told in the first place, and she's 10 now and is even more of a rebel. No, I seek forgiveness from my son, who was never considered in all of this. He was horrified and never said a word. He's 12 now and hates swearing of any kind, and even goes to the lengths of telling Xbox friends off when they swear online. He was singled out when he moved on to high school as the politest boy in the school, but I think I might have done permanent damage to him. So please can I have the collective's forgiveness, please, for my slightly drastic methods of stopping my young daughter using inappropriate language. I'm sure parents will have other experiences of what they did. Maybe it worked and maybe it didn't. Let's see what Sister Rebecca does.
It's a
and what she
difficult
thinks.
one, isn't it? Because before she mentioned the son, I was like, no-brainer. She's definitely forgiven because that was the only way she could have stopped her daughter from swearing. Desperate measures and all that. But
She was 2.5 when she was starting.
Yeah, I mean
so.
that is just the image of the daughter in the bath asking for the soap, quite extraordinary. Anyway, it was the only way to stop her. But then the son suffered from it because he probably went to school and was telling everyone, you mustn't swear because your nose is going to turn blue. So I do feel sorry for the son. But then I think, again, the means justified the ends, so you're forgiven.
We're back into the lying to your children area, but maybe it's justified. Let's see what Sister Bobby makes.
How many times have you stood there in public where a small, sibling or child repeats a word that you, of course, would never say in front of them, and it is embarrassing. So, of course, you do have to kind of stop it, and I think whatever you have to do is absolutely fine. But I'm surprised at how many words her son knew. It's a great vocabulary. Didn't she ever think it was him that was teaching him her in the first place? And I was really impressed that the 2.5-year-old didn't say...
It wasn't the son, was
it? It was the brother.
Friend,
but no, the friend's brother, sorry. But the little one never dropped a minute, which was really quite inspired. But, of course, you're absolutely forgiven because you just have to.
Let's check in with the always polite and swear-free
Correct.
Matt Williams. Never known to cuss.
Never known.
Do you have a cuss-free house?
Yes, absolutely. That's me. It is neither big nor clever to swear, kids. Don't do that. Although there are some people that believe that swearing is evidence of a limited vocabulary, to which I say, no, it's not. But, however, I'm always a big fan of lying to kids. What I don't understand about this particular confession is how wearing a pair of dodgy trousers was going to stop her swearing. That didn't make
I think
any...
she was wearing nice clothes and then made to wear nasty clothes.
Nasty trousers. That's what one has. One has some nasty trousers in the house, just in case.
Yes.
How odd.
Emergency trousers,
Emergency,
they're called.
quick, crack open the emergency sweary trousers. I'm going to say forgiven, just for that.
What, because the emergency sweary trousers?
Because I've never heard of that before, but I need to get
Every house should have some.
I'm going to get myself a pair of
I don't know,
emergency sweary
$1.99
trousers.
emergency sweary trousers. So here's... I'm not going to do non-stop Christmas confessions, but this is a Christmas confession which came in a couple of weeks ago. And just a way of saying, if you send in a Christmas confession, we would very much like to see them because we had a fantastic load last year. And if we're going to have a special prize week, and if we read out your Christmas confession in a prize week, we will send you a digital radio. How about that?
Really?
Which is going to be worth at least £1.
A bit more than that.
A bit more than that, but I just couldn't commit.
Unless it's a really rubbish one.
every Christmas confession for that week
That I read out in that week. So there's just the 4. So we'll keep our favourite ones, I think, for that particular week. Okay. But if you just send them in, because it'd be just good to have Christmas confessions. And if you fancy a Didge radio, then we will, and we like it. We send it, and we'll probably get it to you for Christmas. I can't guarantee that, but Matt has said he will drive them round.
I will drive them round.
Or Bobby will make sure that happens. Rebecca will just. No, she won't. She absolutely won't do anything like that. Confessions at bbc.co.uk. If you have a Christmas confession or any other kind of confession, we'd like to hear it. This one comes from Mr. Thatch Cobbletester, apparently. Dear Father Simon and the Angelic Collective, my cringing and grovelling request for forgiveness relates to a poultry-related event back in 1997 when our family lived on the outskirts of a very pleasant market town on the fringe of the lovely New Forest. At that time, our family consisted of myself, my ever-patient wife, plus 7 children. We eventually had 8. In those halcyon days, Ringwood boasted not 1 but 2 excellent independent butchers, only a stone's throw from each other on opposite sides of the bustling high street. With such a large family to feed, my wife made a point of ordering our large Christmas turkey well in advance, and out of scrupulous fairness alternated the order each festive season between the 2 butchers. Collection of the turkey was to be on Christmas Eve. Closing time, 4 o'clock. No doubt to allow the hard-working staff to get home in time to complete their own festive preparations for the big day. As was customary, it was my responsibility to collect the festive beast, so I set off from Southampton and I joined the long queue with 40 minutes to spare before closing. The queue gradually shortened and eventually it was my turn, and I gave my name to enable a staff member to hurry to the cold store at the back of the shop to bring forward our family turkey for collection. As the minutes lengthened beyond those experienced by the customers before me, I began exchanging nervous glances with the shop manager, who in turn smiled in a reassuring way. "Shan't be much longer, sir. It's
Oh, yeah.
it's very busy, as you can imagine."
Chimney.
It comes from Ringwood.
Yeah.
I smiled and nodded in return, but even so I found myself describing nervous patterns with my foot in the sawdust on the shop floor. Do you remember those days when you had sawdust on the butcher's shop floor? Yes. Eventually, the clearly crestfallen assistant returned empty-handed. "I'm ever so sorry, sir." He spoke in the same way. "We don't appear to have a turkey with your name on it."
What? Hang on, it's Ray Winston again.
That's right.
In the butchers.
You never know.
Where's your turkey?
"You get my turkey now." A terrible vision of our children gathered like a bunch of Dickensian Tiny Tims, wide-eyed in eager anticipation around the family table, awaiting a roast turkey that would never arrive, caused a shudder to run down my spine. "But you must have. My wife ordered it weeks ago," I spluttered pathetically. Are you absolutely sure it's not there? Have you checked twice?" I blurted, my voice rising in pitch as panic began to set in. By now the clock was edging towards 3:50 p.m. The assistant assured me he'd checked thoroughly. "Then what am I to do?" I cried, my voice wailing in Grinch-like anguish as I turned to the shop manager. "I'll go and check myself, sir. I'm sure it's something we can sort out."
Sinister.
Sort it.
Shut it. I'd employ him, definitely. More moments dragged by. The shop was empty, and my vision of our Christmas dinner with roast potatoes, parsnips, chipolatas, glazed carrots, Brussels sprouts with chestnuts and lashings of gravy, but without a turkey, grew ever more menacing in my mind. Eventually, the manager reappeared with a turkey in his arms. "I can only apologise, sir. There's obviously been an oversight on our part and we cannot find a turkey order in your name. However, please accept this, one of our staff turkeys, the largest we could find, as recompense for our error." Well, a wave of relief washed over me, and with profuse expressions of gratitude, whilst I paid and suitable Christmas good wishes were exchanged, I rushed out of the butcher's and drove the few minutes home. With a feeling of suitable festive jollity, I walked into our house and had just deposited the turkey on the kitchen worktop, kissed my wife, and was about to regale her with my tale of turkeyless near-miss when the house phone rang. I answered it myself, only to hear a completely different voice saying, "Hello, sir. This is Bob's Butchers. We've been waiting for you to collect your turkey. It's the last one. We really need to close. Are you going to be able to collect it soon?"
We're the nice butchers, not like the ones over the road.
At this point, my face went ashen as the penny dropped. I hadn't checked with my nearest and dearest which butcher to collect the turkey from, and I'd obviously gone to the wrong one. "Yes, of course. Sorry, I'll be along in a few minutes," I responded in panic, slamming down the receiver as I glanced at the clock now showing 4:10. A shout of "Gotta go!" as I grabbed the turkey back off the kitchen worktop, left my wife open-mouthed in surprise and bewilderment as I ran out of the car, drove off at top speed. With a screech of brakes as I pulled outside the first butcher, I rushed to the now locked door and hammered on it, and I gazed into the now unlit and empty. "No!" I cried as I continued to bang on the glazed door, a large turkey straining in a bag in my other hand. Defeated in my attempt to return the first turkey, I turned around disconsolately to be greeted by a single figure in the other butcher's shop across the road, staring at me with a puzzled expression. The expression grew ever more quizzical as I hastened across the road to the second butcher's and, giving my name, waited a few minutes whilst the nice shop manager gave me our large ordered turkey. As I paid, I couldn't help noticing his raised eyebrows and gaze flitting with puzzled interest from me to the other turkey poking out of the bag under my arm. I gave him a weak, wan smile. "It's for a friend. I say, as I gathered up the second turkey in its bag and wished the manager a swift Merry Christmas, and I left in a hurry. My second arrival home, this time with 2 turkeys, required some explaining. Not only did our family have what was admittedly delicious turkey for Christmas Day, but with the second turkey stored in the freezer, turkey in one form or another we had until Easter. I said it was a buy one get one free offer, and that's how I survived the festive season. So forgiveness, please, first from the family members of the butcher staff that probably sat down to fish fingers for their Christmas lunch, having donated their turkey to us. Second, from the first butcher's manager, as due to shame and embarrassment, I never went to Ray's ever again. I'm just calling it Ray's, it's not called Ray's. Yeah. Third, from my patient wife for having to create multiple recipes in order to make the constant flow of turkey meals both palatable and interesting. And finally, from my long-suffering children, who over the period of 4 months were heard to utter not turkey again on so many occasions. Mr. Thatched Cobble Tester sends in our first festive confession. You can understand the problem that he was in. I think he did all he could, but let's see what Sister Rebecca makes of this.
That was a fantastic confession. I think he did. He meant well, didn't he? He'd offered to go and get the turkey, and so you can't really criticise him for that. But I do think he should have checked with his wife. It's kind of obvious, isn't it? Which butcher was it, if there's more than one butcher
Do you
in
go
the
to
town?
Ray's or Bob's?
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of obvious, and so he wasn't that bright in that sense. He could have given the turkey to a charity or something for the homeless. I think that would have been
It was
a better
like
idea.
5 o'clock on Christmas Eve.
I suppose so, but I'm sure they would have taken it with open arms. But I think, because he meant well, even though he should have checked, I'm going to forgive.
I think that's fair enough. What do you think, Sister Bobby?
Well, he said, did he do all that he could do?
Yes,
Communication is key in any relationship. So,
right?
yep, we've already pointed that out. Yes, would have saved all the problems. But you're right, he could have given it away. He could have got, BBC Local Radio is brilliant for things like that. He could have rung them up and said,
it's not.
yes, it is. It's perfect on Christmas Day.
it's not.
BBC Local Radio is
It's
absolute.
5 o'clock on Christmas Eve.
Yes, ring someone up on Christmas Day. Say, who has lost a turkey? I bet there was someone that couldn't afford a turkey. He could have given it away.
I've worked at local radio on Christmas Day. I tell you, if somebody had rung me up and said, I've got a spare turkey, going on the air and telling everyone about it.
I believe you would. It would have been brilliant. It could
It'll
have been
be
a
closed
brilliant
up by 5
prize on the
o'clock
day.
anyway.
As long as you leave it in the boot of the car overnight to make sure it's
No.
nice and cold. Yeah, of course. Look, it's an easy mistake. That's proper advice,
It
You
is.
know that, yeah.
Well done.
Of course, so no one really lost except, of course, too much turkey.
Yeah,
You're
and
forgiven.
Ray's Butchers. It lost a customer forever. Matthew.
Nige is always telling us to develop a relationship
Yes.
with our butchers, which of course none of us ever do.
But what if you've got two?
Exactly. But what if you've got? And who decides I'm going to alternate between shops? No one does that. No one says I'll go to this newsagent today, and then tomorrow I will take my business to the other newsagent because I like to be nice to all the different news. No one does that. So why would you do it with the butchers? It makes no sense. So actually, it's the wife who is the one to blame here, and that is why we are going to forgive Mr. Thatch.
Mr. Thatch Cobble
whatever.
Tester.
Yeah, we're going to forgive him because it's his wife unnecessarily complicating matters by demanding that they equitably split the turkey orders between different butchers.
Right, so there's no forgiveness.
No, yes, it is forgiveness.
It is forgiveness. All
but
right,
not
okay, very
for the
good.
wife.
Dear Simon and the All-Forgiving Collective, especially Matt, this comes from Dan, by the way. Thank you, Dan. After 20 years, it seems right to let go the burden of my guilt and throw myself at the mercy of your judgment. It was a recent confession I heard on your show, something to do with a music publication which triggered my memory and brought back an overwhelming sensation of guilt and dishonesty. Now, as a fully grown adult and responsible parent trying my hardest to instill good morals and virtues in my children, I need to clear my own slate in order that I too might be a good role model. My story dates back to late 1995 or possibly early 1996. I am 18. I am a first-year student at the University of Loughborough and a bit of a rocker. My days generally consisted of getting up for breakfast at lunchtime, not doing enough study, too much watching of Beavis and Butthead, and then thrashing out with some loud metal on my hi-fi. That's what I was doing all day. That's what we did in Loughborough. My room in Halls, however, was incredible. A mixture of scantily clad pictures of Pamela Anderson and Joe Guest, and torn-out posters from Metal Hammer and Kerrang magazines. Now, I'm familiar with Kerrang. Do you subscribe to Metal Hammer?
Metal Hammer, yes, absolutely.
What kind of
Those
thing?
are two very good publications.
High-quality
by the way.
publications,
Yeah.
very good. I guess, looking back, I was a good balance, says Dan, of popular and unpopular, and it was Kerrang magazine which was at the centre of my deception. At this time, they ran a regular competition called Face in the Crowd, where they would show a picture of some sweaty headbangers at a recent gig with a circle around someone's face. And that was obviously the face in the crowd. Then if that person happened to be a reader, all they had to do was to send a photograph of themselves to win by post. Email was in its infancy back then, and digital photographs were the stuff of tomorrow's world. Yes.
That's a really good feature.
Well, absolutely. One particular issue of Kerrang, the face in the crowd individual, looked rather familiar. It was me. The only thing was, this picture was taken at a Lawnmower Death concert. What?
Oh,
and,
yes!
And how do you think you spell death, by the way? Go on, then.
Well, not D-E-E-A-S?
No.
A-F?
A-F? No, it's obviously Lawnmower Death is spelled D-E-T-H. There's no A.
There's
Is
no
there
A.
an umlaut?
There's no umlauts anywhere.
I've definitely
but what
not
a
misspelt.
band.
No.
Anyway, it's Lawnmower Death, who I think come from the Nottinghamshire area. I don't know where it was. I wasn't there, to be honest, says Dan. Lawnmower Death was a bit beyond my taste. My taste was predominantly the big four, and that shouldn't need explaining, but Matt will explain anyway.
Slayer, Metallica, Anthrax, and Megadeth.
But it looked as though I was at a Lawnmower Death concert. By the way, in case you're interested, have we found them? Yes, we have. Here we go with some Lawnmower Death.
Hang on, that's a cover.
They're doing Kids in America.
Yeah. Hey!
For the first time on Radio 2.
They're doing the backing vocals as well.
Anyway, so it's the mid-90s, and that was the face in the crowd at the Lawnmower Death concert, and it was clearly Dan, except that he wasn't actually there. That was not his kind of thing at all. I definitely wasn't there, says Dan. Well, I thought, if I think this guy could be me, then surely those at Kerrang will be convinced as well. So I scrounged around for a stamp, and I duly sent them a photograph of myself to Kerrang HQ. Some time passed, perhaps a few weeks, enough time for life to move on, and I forgot all about the competition. Then one day, a fellow student said there was a package that had arrived for me at the Students' Union. It was a massive cardboard box, the sort of thing you might use to move house, and it was absolutely stuffed full of goodies. It was a rock hamper.
Wow.
Now that's a good marketing. I've just had an idea.
Yeah.
Rock hampers.
Yes.
Do you think? And you could just fill it full of rock. Pass that on to Dr. Marsh.
I'm not a hod carrier.
Yeah, very good. I'm not quite sure what the success rate of this competition was in terms of actually finding the face in the crowd. I'm guessing it was not that great because I had everything in this box. It was crammed full. I had 10 T-shirts, a dozen or so CDs, and a range of General Tap posters and merchandise. A lot of it with Lawnmower Death on. What a complete result. So 20 years have now passed and the T-shirts don't fit anymore, and it's becoming even harder to find something on which to play the CDs. So it's time to come clean. I don't feel the need to ask forgiveness from Kerrang. I followed their rules, and it was they who agreed that I looked most like the guy in the photograph. But to this day I have wondered if that Lawnmower Death fan had also entered the competition and that I was unjustly judged to be more of a likeness than he was to himself. So it's on his behalf that I ask you to grant me some forgiveness. Well, very good. Okay, I don't think there are phone calls being made even now to the assorted members of Lawnmower Death. I think we were just on radio. Get away! We're not going to be on Radio 2.
Radio 2.
They have
Yes,
moved
we
on. Anyway, so Sister Rebecca, what do you make of Dan's confession?
Well, the thing
there?
is, if he thought it was him, then he's right in guessing that the people at Kerrang would never have known that it wasn't him. But I guess the whole point is, as he said, that there may have been a genuine person who lost out as a result. But, I doubt it very much, somehow. So I think, I don't think anyone else missed out. I do think he has already suffered, because as he said, he didn't even like Lawnmower Death, and he got the T-shirt. So what was the point of that? So I'm going to forgive, because it's funny.
Bobby will find a moral position to take.
Well, no, I think that Kerrang are the forerunners of upcycling. What they did is they were cleaning out the cupboard and they went, how can we get rid of this but not throw it into a dump or put it into landfill? So what we need to do is, no one is really going to claim to be in the crowd of this crowd and this band, but let's just put it out there for a joke. And it's like a rock find Wally, of course, and there was probably one person just Dan that sent his picture in and just went, yeah, that's me. And they went, that's fine. Let's send him the stuff. He's the guy that claimed it. It's absolutely fine. And you're forgiven. You are forgiven.
By the way, Lawnmower Death are on at Rock City, which is in, I imagine this is in Nottingham, on the 19th
They're
of
still
December.
going.
Yeah, they're still going. And, says Neil in St Helens, if I recall, their lead singer is called Qualcast Rotivator. They really are hot on the lawnmower thing.
Wow.
OK, thank you, Neil. So, Brother Matt, what do you make
Yeah, well,
of that?
I mean, obviously, we should first of all stand and applaud the choice of title of band, Lawnmower Death. Who doesn't want to spend an evening with Lawnmower Death? No one. And but also, Bobby's quite right. Basically, all of this stuff was coming from the pluggers for Lawnmower Death, who had been flooding Kerrang offices with their T-shirts and posters and CDs, and so they were very happy to get it off their hands. So, frankly, Dan, well done. You know, because the pluggers for Lawnmower Death couldn't really get rid of that stuff quick enough. And what great news to hear that the band are back together and now touring the country. And why don't we all go on a Friday night?
So this one comes from Derek, 2 R's and a CK at the end. Dear Father Simon and the Collective, my confession relates to an event that occurred. By the way, do we need a warning with this?
Oh, excellent.
It sounds like you do from the title.
Yes.
Yes, a little food, if you're eating food, one of those. My confession relates to an event that occurred just prior to my marriage in 2003. As was and still is the fashion, my best man had organised a stag weekend away for me and a select group of friends. By the way, normally when I get to this point, when I'm reading a confession, you know it's not going to make it on the air. It's very, very unlikely that it's going to. It's like the opening line. Many years ago, I was with the army in the Rhine.
We got a consignment of laxatives came in.
Yes, they don't get on either. The night before we were due to fly, I decided to pop around to a friend's house. When I arrived unannounced, I was pleasantly surprised to see a friend who'd secretly flown over from the States as a surprise guest. Although I had ruined this surprise, a small group of us decided to nip out to a local pub for a couple of beers. And after the beers, someone said, "Who fancies going to a club then?" Well, this was still a time when there were dress codes in many clubs and jeans and trainers were frowned upon. As with many towns, there was always one club where dress codes were not required, and so these became a very popular venue for those just nipping to the pub for a couple of pints who then later fancied a bit of a dance. Has that ever occurred to you, Matt?
Not that often.
Regularly.
Yeah.
This rather dodgy club in question was in the town centre and a converted Victorian terraced house. As was popular at the time, again, this club had music from a different decade on each floor of this 3-storey building. Interesting idea. Having spent a few hours dancing the night away in the 70s top floor, we decided in the interest of a mid-morning flight to call it a night. A bit worse for wear, we walked down the narrow stairway to the second floor. When we got there, we encountered a crowd of revellers cheering. On closer inspection, we saw what they were cheering about. They were watching various young men performing pull-ups on what I imagined to be a purely decorative pipe designed to look like an old Victorian-style pipe on the ceiling at the roof of the staircase. Well, having plenty of Dutch courage, I decided, as an early kind of 30-year-old, really, I'm still pretty strong, to pit my strength against these young whippersnappers. I'd show them what a few pull-ups would look like. So I jumped up and I grabbed the pipe and started to pull I know you're ahead of me, I know you're ahead of me. Started to pull myself up. Despite my best efforts, it actually was a real struggle. However, with the vocal encouragement of the crowd, I managed one pull-up. Which is pathetic. I should have left it there. However, my perceived adoration from the crowd spurred me on, and I went for a second pull-up. Halfway up, I realised that it wasn't going to happen. I should have left it at one. I should have taken notice of the groaning metal joints. I should have noticed that the rivets had had their day, and that the bolts were past their sell-by date. I should have realised that this kind of thing was not for me. I went for one final effort. The accumulation of pull-ups from the resident clubbers had weakened the supports on the surely decorative pipe.
Oh, no.
I mean, obviously it was decorative, as no club would actually have its real plumbing exposed, right? Oh. Wrong. As I pulled myself up, the pipe broke, and along with myself, it fell to the floor. Unfortunately, this pipe was the one that was connected to the men's toilet.
Lovely.
The contents fell on me, fell over my mates, and unfortunately, some of our fellow clubbers. In the fall, I had also, as I later found out, managed to rupture my knee ligaments. Well, in the resulting melee, my friends and I, now completely drenched, managed to hobble out of the club undetected by the bouncers. Fortunately, I lived with my fiancée in the town centre, and so the three of us were able to walk home. One of the group, in his bedraggled state, even managed to stop off for a kebab.
Lovely.
Can you imagine being that
Yes,
person,
please.
completely drenched? Oh, I'll just have some of that elephant's
Extra
foot.
chili sauce, thanks.
So here is where I asked the collective for forgiveness, not from the nightclub owners whose overinflated drink prices could more than cover any repair works, not even from my now wife, who opened her front door that night to be met by 3 drowned rats, but one with a kebab, and the following late-night washing machine escapades. No, Simon, I asked forgiveness from the young people in the club that night who, through no fault of their own, had their evening dancing curtailed in the most unpleasant of ways. Which we can imagine. Thank you very much indeed. Anyway, it's an interesting nightclub tale. Just don't do a pull-up or a press-up or any exercise after you've had a shandy. That's basically
Also,
what you have
on
to
any
learn.
pipe, whether it's decorative or real or whatever, I mean, if it was decorative, would have been even weaker, presumably.
That's
wouldn't
true.
it?
That's true. And don't take the risk.
I mean, the one good thing that came out of it was that the fact that the pipe broke and collapsed probably saved him from the humiliation of not being able to do a second pull-up.
That's right.
But I guess
Which
that
is pretty pathetic.
Small recompense, really. I do feel sorry for the other people, and he was just basically trying to show off. So I'm not forgiving.
Okay, that's fair comment. Derek, what does the mighty novice say?
Well, he just popped out for a pint, Derek, and obviously pandering to the adoring crowd, desperate to show off his biceps. I definitely wasn't going to forgive him. But there again, I did hear that he ruptured his knee ligament.
He did, yes.
And having done that myself, and the operations that have followed since, numerous, I'm down to 6 now, and knowing what that entails, I just think, no, poor you. And
He
what a really
suffered enough, you
unfortunate
think?
way to, well, definitely. I mean, it's horrendous. I mean, ligaments cut
How
out
did
and
you do
replaced.
that?
Me?
Rugby.
Initially
pull-ups?
rugby, yeah, lots of rugby, and then it was so weak. It once went when I was playing a game of darts, and I buried a dart in a table. There was 2 old couples behind me in a North Yorkshire pub, and it like the Mexican earthquake disaster. I had to get it fixed then, so that was operation number 5.
So you think he's probably
forgiven? I've forgiven him, Derek, because
so
he's suffered enough.
it's 1-1. What are we making
I
here?
remember going on a stag do in Spain, and I'd had a little bit too much Don Simon and ended up on the platform with the go-go dancers and fell off and twisted my ankle. So in that situation, I can't possibly do anything but forgive, because we've all been there, we've all done things
With
that
the
were
go-go dancers.
with, well, perhaps not
Yeah.
all of us with the go-go dancers, but we've all done it, and given the opportunity, we'd all do it again. So
With go-go dancers?
well, just the anyway. So for that reason, let's definitely
Different
forgive.
times.
Different times.
Yeah.
But it
because-
wasn't different times.
It
Wasn't it?
It was,
No,
no,
it
it wasn't that recent. It was
Are you still
before
in
I
touch
was
with Don Simone?
In the old days, go-go dancers were quite acceptable. Is that what you're
yes,
saying?
yeah, of course it was.
right.
Well, they were very acceptable.
Well, they were this week's confessions. Did any of them make you think, oh, I've got something like that? Plus, also, you might like to know we've got some prize-bearing confessions. If you've got a Christmas confession and we read it out in the appropriate Christmas week, send it to confessions@bbc.co.uk. That's where you send all your confessions, but we are looking for Christmas confessions. Of course. We have some digital radios to give away. So we'll do more in a week's time. And don't forget, you can listen to our big guest interviews. Naomi J. Williams joined us for the book club chat on Monday. Her book is called Landfalls. She was live in Sacramento. Tuesday was another awesome Tunes Day, so you can listen to that all the way through. Very nicely done. Comedy writer John O'Farrell was in on Wednesday, and Nigel cooked you some squid in red wine on Thursday. Thank you so much for being there.